Welcome to Community Corner. Today we're talking about 44.3. Hello everyone and welcome to Community Corner. My name is KL Smith, joined by Edgar Diaz, Colin Fogle. Today we're talking all about 44.3. The Legions of Agora have hit Monolith.
Oh boy.
This is a big update.
And we're doing this after the patch release.
This is after the patch
This is
releases.
interesting.
So got a couple things that we've already seen people talking about. But if you're new to Community Corner, this is where we take a lot of feedback and or community questions and answer them on the show. Today, we get to talk all about 44.3,
That's right.
which is hot off the presses. Some of you are downloading it right now. Some of you are reading patch notes. Some of you are tweeting us. Everywhere we're seeing a lot of communication around 44.3. So, Colin, you got the floor today, my man.
That's right.
Tell us about the high-level goals for 44.3. A lot is changing with this patch. This is a big one.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot, obviously. And it probably seems like it came out of left field to some people because really it was just a huge change. And this is why 3 weeks ago we didn't release that many balance updates for that build, because we were behind the scenes kind of churning through this and making sure that everything was in line. One of the really big things we wanted to do when we set up for 44.3 was look at heroes in particular. And after cards kind of started to settle out, and we were like, okay, cool, now we feel like we have a good bearing on things. We felt like cards were dictating things a little bit too much and hero abilities weren't coming through enough. So we thought about it and we're like, let's make heroes better as our means of approaching that. So this update has a lot of things that just make heroes better, especially their abilities. Early level ability damage generally went up so that when you have people with those early level 1 and level 2 abilities, it feels like it's actually worth casting is a big thing that we were kind of focusing on. We reduced mana costs for some heroes, especially fighters in particular got their mana costs down so they can be more active. And then crowd control was a really big one. We increased durations of stuns in some cases, especially early, and we increased the magnitude of slows in huge ways in a lot of cases. Like Glari Dagger is way bigger as an example. We've kind of, over the past few months, been slowly slipping in more CC into the roster. Stuff like the Steel rework and the Grux rework are good examples of that. And then with this update, Crunch and Wukong both got some help as far as crowd control goes. So we've wanted more CC, and the general philosophy has been that by having more CC in the game in terms of characters having access to it and it being effective, we feel like when you have a Rampage boulder that's 2 seconds or over 2 seconds, that was always the community complaint was like, over 2 seconds stun. Those sort of things start to become less of an outlier and more just like, okay, if he stuns you, then you stun him, and then you're kind of on an equal playing field again. And we kind of identified like 4 or 5 months ago that, hey, like we don't really have enough crowd control in the game for that to be true. So we've been kind of introducing it, and this is our update that kind of fully pushes everything towards the direction that we want to go. And really, like with the heroes, while we looked at abilities, there wasn't any sort of like blanket change. We didn't go through and say like 20% more damage for everyone. Instead, it was just really calculated, like, these are the heroes that need this, this, and this, and we started going
kind of on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and I think we ended up touching, like, 80% of the roster or something like that. It's pretty much everyone.
Now, were some of the changes reflective of move speed as well for thinking about how you were balancing the heroes?
Yeah, the move speed thing, specifically we looked at combat pacing and the penalties for backpedaling and strafing, and we wanted to kind of revisit those because we did them way back when we did Monolith. And we haven't really assessed them since. So we made adjustments to those, and then after we did that, it was basically, okay, we're pulling back some of the penalties, and everyone was just flying around. So we wanted to kind of ground everything a little bit more, so we pulled move speed in.
Now, economy, big change to that as well. Can you kind of talk through what exactly has changed and the goals behind it?
Yeah. So last time I was on, we talked a little bit about passive drip and objectives and how we want to really start pushing the game towards, hey, these are objectives for you to go for. And that's not just Fangtooth or Jungle.
Do a thing, get money.
Yeah, exactly. And like be here or here. Like you're making decisions between those things. And that's really what is the richness of kind of where you are on the map. And when I talk about objectives, I don't mean just Fangtooth or towers or anything like that. Like we consider the lane an objective. And essentially it's a just objective that's constantly churning and always has things there. And you can always go there for gold or experience or whatever. So we want to really push those and reduce our reliance on passive drip for where people get their money from. But we still want you to land in a pretty reasonable spot as far as like, okay, your support, you should have a little bit of money to play with at least. So to that end, we reduced passive drip again in this update. I think it's now 33% less. And in order to compensate, when a minion dies now, it'll give out some amount of gold, even if it wasn't last hit.
Okay.
That was kind of the trade-off as far as, okay, support still need this money, these players still need this money.
Sure.
We want you to have to go get it. So like you have to be in the lane doing things. And we think that's fundamentally better than relying on the passive drip.
Okay.
So again, and like in higher level play where people are getting last hits pretty frequently, it doesn't really affect much, but it does help smooth out the game as a whole.
Do something, get money.
Do something, get paid.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the idea.
Now, one of the absolute biggest changes that are in this particular build is the lane structure.
Yeah.
We went from the 2v1s back to the 1-1-2s or the 2v2 lane matchup.
Yeah.
Kind of talk through
I would
that
just like to
for
point
us.
out I am very, very happy. I'm a very happy Ed after this change.
Look, I was a great offlaner, so I'm just throwing it out there. I thrive in the unfair advantages. But go ahead and talk.
No, this is
talk
actually, it's a bit of an interesting story because when we were set out to make all these changes, we didn't actually have this in mind. We weren't like, okay, let's do this lane structure, then make these changes. It was, hey, let's make heroes better, especially early game. Like those first few levels in particular, using abilities just sucked. That was our goal. And then as we did that, it was like, oh yeah, going 1v2 against heroes that are more empowered with their abilities actually is just really, really hard. And offlane in particular has always been something that's been a difficult thing for us to balance. Like, it's a really delicate thing to be able to be like, yeah, sometimes you're as good as two heroes, and you can kind of survive and win that.
Right.
But not always. But also you can do it, so we want you to be here. And like reinforcing that has been difficult. So really, when we looked at the heroes, we were like, you know what, let's try it. Especially because we just added Fangtooth, which kind of weights the map on that side anyways for the laning type phase.
Yep.
Sure.
Spawns earlier.
Yeah, so like if you were a duo on the
down,
other
yeah.
side of the map, you couldn't really get over to Fangtooth.
Exactly.
Right.
So all these things combined, we were like, all right, let's try it. And we played it. We had a ton of fun. It was action-packed. I think we ran to like really cool depth with matchups where it was like, oh, these heroes are really good unless they're against these heroes, which again is like bread and butter stuff, but
Sure.
it's kind of something we discovered over time. And actually, the asymmetry of the map sort of increases the depth of those matchups because these two heroes might be really good, but only when you're on Dusk where you have the high side, or only on Dawn when you have the low side. And because in Draft we'll now be showing you'll be picking a lane,
Yep.
and then you'll be picking your heroes. But during this, we're also showing you which side of the map you're on, Dawn or Dusk.
Right.
So you can kind of plan around like, oh yeah, we know we're going to be in this situation, so how are we going to play around
Yeah,
it?
that was always a big question when we first dropped Monolith, and even back in some of the pre-Monolith days, people would say, I don't know which side of the map I'm coming on. So you hear
Right.
people go right or left, and then when they load into the map, they were like, oh, I'm actually on left when I called out right.
Yeah, like way
Things
back in the
that.
Legacy days, that was a problem. And over time, like people just learned it. But now we'll actually have lane guides in, so when you start the match, you'll have a little arrow kind of pointing you down the direction you're supposed to go. You can turn it off in the settings. So if you're someone that just absolutely does not want that, then you can turn it off. But it should help everyone get to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a big UI tutorial type thing that we introduced there. One of the other things I was thinking about was the you mentioned it briefly, the draft selection, and now asking for people to select their lane prior to their role.
Yeah.
And I think it's strongly suggested now. That
I
you do
believe
it?
we got little errors in there like, hey, you have too many supports.
Supports, yeah.
We won't
Yep.
stop you from locking in with two mids.
Right.
We didn't really go that far with it. We think that really players should be able to work it out.
Absolutely.
Ideally. So yeah, you select your role that you want, you'll pick and you'll draft. But because everyone has to click a role in order to see heroes to pick from at all, it should increase the amount of people that kind of participate in that part of the draft
Yeah.
where you're
Sure.
working out where everyone's going. Whereas before you'd have people that were just non-participatory, which made it difficult. So,
Yeah, and I just want to call out again the little subtlety in you have too many supports, you have too many fighters, you don't have a carry. We had a lot of people at one point in time asking for us to put those features in so that you could identify. It's like, hey guys, switch up the draft. Now we have some more messaging in the game to let people know, like, oh, you're stacked one way too far this way, or you're stacked way too far this way, and that can make a lot of those solo queue experiences a lot more enjoyable.
And we'll even we suggest heroes based on the role. So if you click support, you'll see the support heroes. And it's a little bit generous. Like a few people on there are like, okay, maybe they're not the primary supports, but they're still they still work.
Sure.
Yes.
And we're still promoting hero diversity. You should still be able to
Yeah.
play multiple heroes in
And you
multiple
can still
different
pick.
roles.
And you can still pick
do
anyone.
that.
You just
Yeah,
click a different button
just
in
to
order
be
to get the
clear.
full
Yeah,
list.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then one more thing I want to clarify with this, and though it is recommended now that we do the lane structure 1-1-2, you guys decide on how your hero matchups and your team work the best type of lane structure and or strategy or tactics to be successful in game. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things we saw in competitive scene for a while was the one
two,
left
one.
and yeah, the 1-2-1, 2 in mid, right? And teams do that because that's what they're successful with. They've seen a lot of either hero compositions or strategies that play into that
Absolutely.
particular style of play. So ultimately, you can decide on where is optimal for you to go if you're working in the team. All we're trying to do is help people, understand the structure a little bit better.
Yeah, and fundamentally, we believe that this structure leads to a more fun experience, which is why we're doing the lane guides in the first place.
Gotcha.
It's, hey, if we can kind of get the majority of the community on board with this, then we feel like that provides the best match. And then obviously from there, players can be creative and
Yep.
deviate. Like
Yep.
that's totally
And
cool.
kind of again, you still have all of those depth options, if not way more so now, as Colin was kind of pointing out. Now that we're with the reintroduction of the 2v2 lane, your hero picks really, there's a lot of importance on those.
Yep.
If I'm going against an aggressive lane, like a Revenant Steel, for example, someone who's really just trying to play super aggressive, trying to go in on me, maybe a Phase, and I my carry locks in Sparrow, Phase, awesome hero to pick there. Obviously going to play a huge role in that 2v2 matchup. So some of the you really got to start thinking about how those heroes match up against each other.
Yeah.
Now.
Right.
Even in the 1v1 side, like the matchups are
Oh, yeah,
super
definitely.
important. And some heroes are just like generally good against all matchups, but other times if you like first pick, then you might be prone to someone picking something that's really good against you or something like that.
So the last big change, gyms.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Actually, surprising little discussion.
I
from
know.
what I've
I
seen
was
this morning.
expecting to see
same.
a blow. I saw one little person say, "Hey guys, this is actually a pretty big deal."
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think there's just so much in here.
It's
People are going to
a
start
giant
picking
patch
it
notes,
apart.
yeah.
Sure.
So all the gyms are now available. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the plan with gems from the get-go was, oh, yeah, we're going to release the card system, and then we're going to get gem crafting online. And until we get gem crafting online, we're going to make it so that we don't drop lots of gems.
Yep.
This was because we didn't want your inventory to be loaded with tons of gems.
Right.
So that was the reason that we had low drop rates on them. And then it was like, oh, we actually want to redo the HUD and do all this draft stuff. And like the UI things that we were kind of piling onto kept getting higher and higher. And gem crafting kept getting pushed back and back. So we were like, man, we really just want everyone to be experiencing the content, which is really the goal from the get-go. So with this update, you'll get one copy of every gem.
Right.
So that's for new players and existing players. Everyone will have one of every gem, so you'll be good to go.
Is that so going forward? Because I already know the follow-up question is, when there's a new gym, does that mean I will have access to that gym?
It'll depend on like where we are in development. We're still kind of assessing how we want to do that stuff long term.
Okay.
But this is a one-time thing for now.
Okay. And then starter decks.
Yep.
We changed those around as well.
Yeah, we made them all 12 cards, so they all went from 8 to 12 cards. There's a bit more variety between them as well, so you can get different play styles between them. And in doing so, because we went to 12 cards, there's more cards in starter decks, so we granted more cards to new users. So if you're an existing user and you didn't have, or I guess all existing users will get one copy of the cards we added, and new users now have, it's almost like half the library, I think, of our current cards.
So if you are a player out there that just started and you're like, man, if only I had some more cards. When you load in today, you'll have some more cards.
Yeah.
Definitely help you out. Yep.
Including Form of Grubbish, which is the new card which we released today in order.
So
Which
how
Turned
did this?
into a
Hold on,
bug.
hold on,
Turned into
hold
a
on,
bug.
hold on. How did you guys come up with Form of Grubbish? Because I don't remember this one.
yeah, so this was,
Whose idea was it?
I believe it was Billy Rivers wanted.
It's like,
he's
oh,
one of our card
what
guys.
if you just turned into a bug?
Well, we want to do some kind of like polymorph / change shape type stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do a hex card like for control as another option to the sleeper agent equivalent in blue. So he wanted to make it. He wanted to turn you into a bug like the river bugs. And we were all like, yeah, like if you can do it, then go for it. And sure enough, he's like, here, boom. And it even has essentially like low grav when you get hit, so you'll be able to fly a little bit
Flutter
as
a
you.
little.
Yeah, so like if you get hit, like if you get transformed in the air, you won't just fall straight to the ground. You'll kind of flutter for a bit.
Does it have the spit attack?
Does not have the spit attack.
Oh man, so close.
Yeah. But yeah,
opportunity there.
really exciting card. It's really powerful. I think it gives Order some more options. And in general, the card updates this release. We really kind of focused on the mage role because mage builds were super samey. It was the same really consistently. Everyone was using all the blue cards.
Right.
So we buffed a bunch of the late game cards in other colors, as well as Former Grubbish adds another option for the more control-oriented carries or casters.
So
Now-
with all these changes, this has been really, really big.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Huge
and
change.
yeah, lots and lots of changes. What is the reasoning behind all of this?
Yeah, I think that if there was one thing that we can't really be accused of, it's being afraid to shake things up. Obviously, we've done it several times now,
Yep.
so this is just the latest iteration of that. In a lot of ways, it's if we feel like something needs to be done, we'll do it, and that's just generally been our philosophy, and it held true here. And in a more holistic sense, we're preparing for our full global launch early next year, so we wanted to get this stuff out there as early as possible so that we can start getting balance and iteration over the next month or so where things kind of slow down before the holidays in order to start getting everything lined up to be as good as we can.
So if there's one thing you guys take away from this, we will exhaust all options in creating the best version of Paragon that we possibly can before we prepare for a full global launch. No rock left unturned.
No, we've turned all the rocks several times
All
now, I
of
think
them.
at this point. They've all
Found
seen
we found a couple. We flipped them over twice.
we found some new rocks. At this point, we're mining. And really, I think it's starting to come together well. Like
Yeah.
when we
Oh, no, definitely.
when we released Monolith, we knew that cards was something that needed to be done. So we set out at the beginning of the year to start working through card system. Got that up, but when we did it, we did a hero balance pass that was done, but we didn't really know like where cards was going to land as far as the balance point. We
Yep.
knew we'd have to iterate on it a bit. So once that finished, we were like, okay, let's actually do heroes, which is what this pass was. And while it's been going on, we've been adding objectives and increasing just the richness of like the decision making and where you are during the game. I
Yep.
think all that stuff's starting to come together really well.
Right.
Obviously, we still have some stuff to do, but for the most part, I think that the game's finally starting to form into what we were targeting way back with that
Definitely.
release.
And I think I've been seeing a little bit of talk too, even just this morning, seeing a bunch of the early comments coming in. Folks just kind of hey, this Paragon's turning into a game now, right before our very eyes. What's going on? We got cards now, as you pointed out. We got heroes, a bunch of the art. We updated the minions. We finally have the
Yeah, minion
visual-
art actually is another
have-
big one that was on our list.
We have the visuals to now match up with the gameplay. Pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
starting to
Awesome.
get all the UI stuff coming online. Like the UI
coming
settings have been so good. I've
coming
been
together.
enjoying that stuff so much.
Now I just want to fix all the things with replay. By the way, Live Spectator is, I think, currently in. I'm not sure if we have a
It is.
hotfix on or off right now, but we do have it in. There's a couple little issues right now, but you can join through Custom Match,
You
and
can.
you can click a little button that says Spectate and hop into a game
Nice.
live and watch
That's right.
live gameplay.
For you competitive guys out there,
Live.
big thing that I know those guys have been talking about for a
Yes.
while.
Yes. So that is all for today's community corner. We
We have a
have
question,
Well,
didn't we?
hold on, Kale. We had one. We had
I thought
one.
we addressed it.
We had just one
I don't think we
question.
did.
I think we more so just wanted to. I want to give it its own little
been a
little
common thing
spotlight.
over
So,
the
as
reaction we've seen.
as we've kind of moved to this community corner is a little unorthodox in that we are doing it day of patch. A lot of the feedback we're gonna kind of see as you guys kind of bring that to us. There is one thing though that we have kind of seen across the board. So this one here is actually from Ken Moore. This one here was on Twitter, and the question is, I love that 2v2 is coming back, but doesn't that map design mean that one duo will be favored due to gold buff access, playing downhill, etc.? Colin, you want to kind of take that? I've
Yeah.
been seeing a
Gold
couple
buff
of
is
folks
gone.
talk about this.
No, gold buff's there on the carry side.
Correct.
On the
the
solo
other
side,
side's the
there's
health-
a
Yes,
health regen
yes,
health
yep.
regen.
buff. Yeah, this is something that we're going to be watching. I actually pulled the data a couple days ago for where live was in terms of win rate. Dawn was like a little bit ahead. It's something that we're going to be watching, seeing where the win rate kind of pans out. Currently, we're seeing that like having access to the Fangtooth on that side is actually a bit of a counterbalance in the sense that, yeah, the team has an advantage during lane, but then the team with Fangtooth access just in general has an advantage. So we're hoping it all kind of evens out, but really it's just we need to watch and see where the win rates land across the different skill brackets and then make decisions from there.
There you go.
Right.
There was the answer to that.
We are fully committed to addressing it if there is something. Like, obviously, we're not going to let it sit with like a 60-40 win rate or anything like that.
But it'll be-
51-50? 49?
51-49 would not be bad. If you look at the genre in general, there's like anywhere from like a 4 to 5% spring spread pretty consistently across every title.
There you go.
It's just something as we add objectives and shift stuff around, it's going to continually fluctuate.
We're
so.
watching, waiting, and ready for action.
Watching, waiting, and ready for action. Sure. ready for action.
There you go. So, was there anything else?
That's all I got.
I think that's it.
Enjoy the
Okay.
patch. Enjoy the
Okay.
patch.
All right.
I need to get out of here so I can go play. I mean, I just want to go play. I just want to go play.
We really want to go play. So, Winterfest right around the corner. Let's
That's
go ahead and
right.
confirm that now.
That's right.
You guys are going to China.
Yeah, that was actually why we had not to community corner last week.
Yes.
There was a
So
can we
last-minute travel
can we
emergency.
just give the TLDR, like the short version of the story, because it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, the short version is that we were going to film community corner on Friday, but then I had to fly to DC to go to the Chinese consulate to apply for a visa. So that's the short version.
Yeah.
So instead, we ended up doing it today after the patch released.
Yes.
You ended up taking a little bit of a road trip.
Oh yeah, we went all the way back and then
home.
drove all the way back from DC to Raleigh. So
You sound like you had a nice little adventure.
watching, waiting, ready for action at all times.
Watching, waiting, ready for action. Colin Fogle.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll actually be at a 10-cent game conference next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be good. Good time. Like I said, we're ramping up, getting ready for a full global launch, and we're starting to spin the wheels on a lot of different things. So hope you guys are ready, because we're going to continue to shake things up as we get closer to global launch. So there will be no surprises. I promise you. We will try to be as informative as we can. Lots of things that are in the works.
No
Should be good.
surprises except for the patch we just did today.
That wasn't our fault.
That's,
I mean, it was
had to
entirely
look
my
up-
fault, really.
It's your fault.
Surprises
fault.
on surprises. But you shouldn't be surprised because we're going to be doing this.
Yes, but it's no surprises that there's lots of big changes.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting at. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's show. If you did, please make sure to let us know down in the comment section about what questions you may have, what you want to see for next week's Community Corner, because we'll be gone for holiday this week.
That's right.
And yeah, let us know, and we'll see you guys next time.